Have you ever wondered why, right now, at this exact moment in your life, you are watching this video? It is not by chance. It is necessity. You did not arrive here because you were bored, curious, or looking for distraction. You arrived here because there is something inside you begging for change. Maybe you're tired of repeating the same mistakes. Maybe you're suffocating under old choices that are now taking a heavy toll on your peace of mind. Maybe you're at your limit emotionally, financially, or spiritually, and I tell you, with the conviction of someone who has built empires from scratch, this moment could be the turning point of your existence. If you have the courage to face it as such, when I looked back on my own life, at the foot of poverty, in Scotland, with the harshness of life teaching me early on to swallow my pride and learn to observe in silence, I realized something powerful. Life sends silent invitations to greatness, but few have the refined listening skills to respond. Many ignore them. Many procrastinate. But those who respond transform their story. Today, this video is your invitation, not to another motivational speech, but to a session of rebuilding, of strategy, of inner power. It all starts here. You are exactly where you should be. But not because this place is good. It's because this is the fertile ground of productive rebellion, of the enough that precedes every personal revolution. What I mean is simple. It doesn't matter what has happened so far. Debts, failed relationships, professional disappointments, dreams shelved. All of this is just the backdrop of your old life, and it is about to be dismantled. But before you think this is about positive thinking or catchphrases, let me be clear. This is a video about practical reconstruction, structure, emotional control, personal efficiency, and above all, purpose. With action. This is not a video to make you feel good. It's a video to make you act with brutal honesty. If you haven't noticed, the world outside isn't going to slow down to wait for you. Technology isn't going to stop so you can adapt. The crisis isn't going to apologize before it knocks on your door. And opportunities aren't going to explain themselves so you can notice them. Time is cruel to the indecisive. So, my invitation is straightforward. Stop looking for easy ways out and start building unshakable foundations. When I was in my early 20s, I understood something that changed my life. It's not intelligence that makes you win. It's the ability to decide quickly and execute with discipline. I chose a single sector steal. And I decided I would be the best, not the biggest, the best. Efficiency became my religion. Every penny counted. Every minute was planned down to the millimeter. Delegating was not giving up. It was empowering with supervision. And everyone around me had a mission, to be better than me at something. That's how I built a machine for progress, and that's what I want you to build in your life. A machine, a system, a personal empire. You don't need more courses. You need a non-negotiable decision, a commitment to yourself that you will never betray yourself again. Because that's what happens every time you promise and don't deliver. Plan and don't execute, dream and don't act, you betray yourself. And no fortune survives a general who doesn't trust himself. The war of your life begins within. It begins with how you deal with mornings, with decisions, with impulses. It begins when you understand that emotional control is not calmness, it is command. It is not reacting less, it is deciding better. You may be financially broke, but if you are rich in vision, you are already ahead of most people. The cruelest poverty is short-sightedness, and I assure you, vision is built with silence, reading, and constant action. I read every day, without exception, even when fatigue seemed to win, because I knew the mind that stops learning begins to age, and empires are not built by rusty minds. But there is another point, perhaps the most crucial of all, your network. The people around you. I have always been obsessed with this. Choosing minds brighter than mine was not humility, it was strategy. I didn't want applause, I wanted results. I didn't want followers, I wanted builders. And you? Who do you hang out with? Who is shaping your worldview? Who influences your decisions? The truth is that many fail not because of a lack of talent, but because of too much mediocrity in their lives. And I tell you this with the coldness of someone who has fired brilliant people for lack of character. Choose carefully. or you will be chosen by inertia. Now listen to this carefully. Every empire begins with a dominated internal territory. No one leads others without first leading themselves. And internal leadership requires three things: relentless habits, elevated language, and singular focus. If you wake up late, consume useless content, and live justifying yourself, then you still don't understand the game, and you're playing to lose. But if you assume, right now, that every minute is an asset, and that your body, mind, and spirit are tools of the trade, then we already have a foundation. And this is where I ask you to do something practical. Close your eyes for 10 seconds, and imagine your ideal life in 5 years. Visualize it in detail. Now, open your eyes and answer with brutal honesty. Are you behaving today like someone who is going to live that life? If the answer is no, then you have an urgent decision to make. Align your present with that future, and that starts today. Now, right now. In fact, if you've made it this far, it's because there's a greater calling within you. Something inside you knows that there's still time, and I can confirm that there is, but not for long. The next few days will be decisive. Every decision you make will be a seed. And seeds don't choose the climate, they choose the soil. If you plant focus, you will reap structure. If you plant courage, you will reap new opportunities. But if you keep planting excuses, you will reap more of the same. So, before we move forward, let me ask you something with intention. Subscribe to this channel. Not because I need it, but because you need continuity. Structure, repetition. This will be your new foothold. And I will be here as your voice of command. Direct, firm, and committed to your progress. Have you ever noticed that the moments of greatest pain are also the most direct gateways to rebuilding? No one looks for iron to forge swords when they are comfortable. It is in the fire of adversity that steel is forged. And the same is true for you. Every frustration, every loss, every regret, all of this can become raw material for your strength. If and only if you decide to stop lamenting and start building. And building requires method. The first pillar of this construction is called routine with purpose. I'm not talking about a busy schedule, I'm talking about a war rhythm. A sequence of non-negotiable actions that shield your mind and body from external storms. You wake up and know what to do. You are clear about what to prioritize. Your energy is not wasted trying to please others or putting out last-minute fires. That is empire. That is what separates those who live reacting from those who live creating. And here's a secret. Whoever dominates the first 2 hours of the day dominates the rest of it. The masses wake up late, rushed, and distracted. Builders wake up prepared, focused, and already in action. In my day, I started the day with reading, strategic decisions, and absolute silence. Because I understood early on, the world values those who speak, but rewards those who know how to listen, especially to themselves. The first meeting of the day should be with your vision, with your purpose, with your long-term goal. And that's another point I need to drive home. If you don't know exactly where you want to go, any movement becomes a waste. Absolute clarity of purpose is what separates an epic life from an ordinary existence. When I chose steel, it seemed limited. But I knew that within that choice there was a universe to be conquered, and I conquered it. You, on the other hand, may be trying to do everything, or change direction with every new video, every new idea, every new guru. That's not ambition. It's desperation in disguise. Cut it out, eliminate it, choose a war, and win it. Now, look around you. How many people live in an invisible cycle of effort with no return? They work all month, pay their bills, blame themselves for not saving, promise to change, and start from scratch the next month. That's not life. That's modern slavery. And the only way out is to build systems. Financial systems, emotional systems, productive systems. Stop relying on willpower. It fails. It always fails. But well-designed systems work even on your worst days. In the financial field, for example, I want you to understand this with brutal clarity. Saving is not accumulating. It's a survival strategy. Accumulating requires purposeful investment. And before you think I'm talking about stocks or real estate, know that the greatest investment, there is still the one that no one can steal, what you do for yourself. Reading, mentoring, practical skills, these things don't depreciate over time. On the contrary, they are the kind of capital that multiplies every time it is used. But be careful. The world is full of experts in accumulating knowledge and miserable people in applying it. Knowing does not transform. Doing transforms. Every day without real application of a new idea is a wasted day. I have known men who knew more than I did about economics, engineering, philosophy, and died poor. Because they never left the realm of theory. True empire is built on action. But not just any action, sustained, targeted, scalable action. That is the art of building. And now I want you to take a deep breath and listen carefully. Nothing you have built so far defines you. Nothing, not your failures, not your successes. What defines you is what you are willing to do from this moment forward. That silent decision to burn your bridges with mediocrity and never again settle for anything less than excellence. I built libraries, not to give people books, but to give them the chance to rewrite themselves. And today, you have the same chance. To rebuild, to rewrite, to be reborn. But you can't rebuild in the midst of chaos. Your home, your computer, your cell phone, your mind. Everything needs to be clean, organized, focused. External chaos is always a reflection of internal chaos. And there is no consistent progress where disorder reigns. Start with your desk, then your schedule, then your relationships. Until everything around you is aligned with who you have decided to become. And speaking of relationships, let me be blunt, quickly cut out what drains you. This is a decision that many avoid, but everyone needs to make. Business, friendships, habits, emotional addictions. If they don't push you forward, they're pulling you back. There is no neutrality in the environment. Everything communicates, everything influences, everything shapes. You are the average of the voices you hear every day. And if those voices don't challenge you to grow, they're dumbing you down. Now, before we go any further, I want you to pause for a moment and reflect. What was the most powerful decision you made in the last 30 days? If you can't answer that, then something needs to change urgently. Because empires are built on frequent and consistent decisions, not on sporadic desires. And here, I want to hear from you. I want to know, what empire are you willing to build starting today? What area of your life will be your non-negotiable priority? Comment below, declare it loudly, with truth. Because a written decision is more powerful than a silent desire. True freedom is not found in free time, but in autonomy built with discipline. Freedom without structure is just disorder, by another name. And that's why so many, when they gain some space to choose, sabotage themselves again. They don't know what to do with their own freedom. They are addicted to being bossed around, to going with the flow, to depending on other people's schedules. That's not life. That's emotional imprisonment for those who never learned to lead themselves. And here is the central principle. Those who do not lead themselves will always be led by bosses, by bills, by impulses, by comparisons. I built an empire that generated millions of dollars a week. Not because I was obsessed with money, but because I understood early on that wealth is the result of applied leadership. Leading businesses, leading people, leading systems, it all starts with self-mastery. But mastering yourself is not about repressing yourself. It's about turning every emotion into a strategic tool. Fear becomes alertness. Anger becomes corrective energy. Sadness becomes a lens for introspection. Even boredom can become fuel for innovation. No emotion is wasted, as long as you put it under control. The problem with most people is not that they feel too much. It's that they don't know how to channel it. They live, like rudderless boats, at the mercy of emotional winds. But you can no longer afford that luxury. If you want to build something great, you need to operate at a higher level of consciousness. And that starts with a brutally simple question. What is your personal code of conduct? What are the non-negotiable principles that guide your actions, even when no one is watching? In my case, there were 3. relentless efficiency, absolute loyalty, and constant progress. Nothing, absolutely nothing, was accepted below these standards, and that's why my team grew like steel under pressure. I didn't lead by sympathy. I led by example, and by clarity. Today, many want to lead, but few want to hone themselves. They want followers, but they haven't become worthy of being followed. They want authority, but they can't stand being held accountable. They want power, but they avoid responsibility. And that's what sinks entrepreneurs, parents, managers, and even religious leaders: the illusion that they can command others without first mastering themselves. The truth is that the world doesn't need more voices. It needs more examples. And that starts with small daily decisions. Getting up when the alarm goes off, keeping your promises, reviewing your mistakes without excuses, asking for help when necessary, cutting out invisible addictions, learning with brutal honesty. The leader you want to be already exists within you, but it is buried under layers of self-saboteurs, and it's time to dig. And speaking of leading people, I want to let you in on a secret worth millions. Only hire people who are better than you at something specific, and never keep anyone around who takes offense at being held accountable. My empire was built on talent that surpassed me in key areas. Engineers, operators, managers, they all had the freedom to create, but they knew that excellence was the minimum expected. This created an environment of construction, not internal competition. Everyone knew they were there to build a piece of the empire, and that the collective result was more important than individual ego. And here's the detail that few people notice. A true leader doesn't centralize, he expands. He's not the busiest, he's the most strategic. I would spend hours without touching a machine, but every decision I made moved thousands of men, tons of steel, and millions of dollars. Because I delegated with precision, with confidence, and with supervision. Delegating is not abandoning. It's trusting with high standards. Now, think about your current circle. Are there people there who challenge you to grow, who demand the best from you, but without complacency? Or are you surrounded by sycophants, complainers, and spectators of their own ruin? Do some emotional sorting. Eliminate with courage. Reinforce those who drive you forward with gratitude. The energy of your environment can accelerate or sabotage years of work. You can no longer ignore this. And make no mistake, every empire faces resistance, criticism, doubt, envy, even from those you love. It's part of the game. But a true builder is not shaken by external approval. They keep going because their compass is within. And here is the ultimate test. If everything were taken away from you today, money, status, titles, would you still have the principles, vision, and courage to rebuild everything from scratch? If the answer is yes, you are already free. If it is no, we have work to do, and we will do it. But with order, with method, with an unshakable spirit. Because life does not reward those who merely wish. It rewards those who decide. And those who decide, act. And those who act consistently, sooner or later, reap what they sow. That is the supreme law of progress. And it never fails. There is a moment in life when everything boils down to one question. What will be the legacy of my existence? Not what I have accumulated, not what I have shown, but what I have built that will continue to exist after I am gone. That question changes everything. It redefines priorities, recalibrates ambitions, exposes vanities. Because when you face it honestly, you realize that true success is not what you take from life, it is what you leave behind. And I can tell you with authority, wealth only has meaning when it serves something greater than wealth itself. When I built my fortunes, it was never to show off. My watch was simple, my clothes were modest. My pleasure was not in being seen, it was in seeing something come from nothing, grow, generate work, dignity, education, progress. That's what made my heart sing. Every library I built, every university I supported, every young person who gained access to knowledge because I donated part of what I had, that was true wealth. You may think, but I haven't even achieved stability for myself yet. How can I think about a legacy? And I answer, that's exactly why you should start there. When your goal is greater than your survival, your mind operates on another level. You act with more intensity, with more discipline, with more vision. Those who think only about the next bill act like survivors. Those who think about creating something that will outlive themselves act like empire builders. And the universe, life, call it what you will, respond to that. But be careful. Philanthropy is not giving away leftovers. It is planning impact. It is putting your strategic mind at the service of the common good. It is not about giving money out of guilt. It is about reinvesting in society intelligently, teaching, empowering, opening doors, transforming resources into permanent structures for collective advancement. I did not give alms. I built access. I didn't feed laziness. I fed minds, and that makes all the difference. After all, what good is winning the financial game if you lose the game of relevance? I've known men who were billionaires and miserable on purpose. They had everything to buy, but nothing to live for. Is that what you want? Or do you want to build a life that makes sense, even when money is no longer a motivation? The answer lies in what you choose to multiply. Just profits, or meaning as well. And speaking of multiplying, I want you to understand a silent truth of the universe. Everything you share with generosity and strategy tends to come back multiplied. Your time, your knowledge, your example. When you help someone grow, you grow. When you guide someone by the hand, even with little, you expand what you carry inside. This is the most sacred secret of abundance. It flows to those who do not hold it back. But be careful. Indiscriminate generosity becomes waste. You need to be selective. Invest your time where there is fertile ground. Your energy where there is a thirst for transformation. Your resources where there is a structure to bear fruit. This is the difference between emotional altruism and strategic philanthropy. I never gave to ease my conscience. I gave to accelerate destinies. And here's a thought-provoking question for you. If you disappeared today, who would be better off because you lived? What structure, habit, idea, or attitude of yours would live on in others? If the answer is no one, then there is still an entire empire to build. And you have the opportunity, perhaps a unique one, to start now. But to do that, you need to reclaim something that most people have lost. Mastery over time. Time is not a resource. It is the most valuable asset in the universe. And how you manage it defines not only what you achieve, but who you become. I timed my day like someone managing a diamond mine. Every block of hours had a purpose. Every week had a clear goal. And the year was a project. Most people spend their lives putting out fires. I spent mine lighting beacons. Do you understand the difference? When you live in urgency, you extinguish your greatness. When you live with direction, you multiply your impact. And that direction needs to be anchored in a mission, a cause, a why that makes you get up even on the hardest days. When my company faced crises, I didn't fall apart. Because my vision didn't depend on the market. It was rooted in an ideal. Maybe that's what you need today. More applied idealism. More dreams with method. More vision with execution. Stop saying you believe and start proving it with your actions. Because faith without action is an illusion. And you weren't made to be deluded, you were made to enlighten. With your story, with your overcoming, with your rebuilding, do you think your past disqualifies you? I say, it's precisely what qualifies you. The mistakes, the falls, the bankruptcies, the failures, all of that is the mortar that builds character. You may have lost your way, but if you're here now, it's because you still have a mission to fulfill. There are still people who will be impacted by your rise. There is still an empire that only you can build. And when that empire begins to materialize in your mindset, in your routine, in your results, you will see that it was never about money. It was always about influence, about serving, about transforming. The money will come naturally, but as a consequence, not as a purpose. We have reached the point in the journey where the choice is no longer between acting or not acting. The choice now is between living as a builder or surviving as a prisoner of your own excuses. And if you've listened this far, there is no more room for ignorance. There are no more acceptable excuses. You have been awakened, and an awakened mind never sleeps peacefully in a life without direction. Let me be as direct as I always have been. You don't need luck, you need vision. You don't need more opportunities. You need to learn to recognize and master the ones that are already in front of you. Life doesn't hand you things on a silver platter. It hands you tools. It's up to you to pick them up, shape them, and apply them. That's what defines those who build their own empires. They stop asking for permission and start taking charge. I've taught you about personal leadership, about systems, about efficiency, about purpose, about philanthropy. But if there's one thing that underpins all of this, one single virtue that, if applied with discipline, can redefine your destiny, it's unconditional commitment. Commitment to your vision, even when the winds blow against you. Commitment to your values, even when it would be easier to give in. Commitment to your evolution, even when everyone around you would rather stagnate. That commitment needs to be visible. It needs to show up in your mornings, in your studies, in the way you treat your body, your relationships, your finances. It needs to be there when no one is looking. Because what you do in the dark is what defines the brightness of what will come to light. And if there is one enemy you must defeat starting today, it is self, the habit of forgiving yourself too much, of justifying yourself, of procrastinating, of covering up the truth about your own performance. Life is not generous to those who delude themselves. It honors those who look in the mirror and, even if they are trembling, say, I can be more, and I will be. You may have failed 1,000 times. So what, if you decide with brutal seriousness that this will be the last time you betray yourself? Then today will be the beginning of a rebirth. And true rebirths are silent, uncomfortable, and intense. They don't come with applause, they come with sweat, with sacrifice, with lonely days, but they also come with fruits that few will experience. Imagine 5 years from now, you waking up in a home you built with wisdom, surrounded by people who trust you, doing work you love, with true financial freedom, and with a legacy being woven every day. Imagine the peace of knowing that all of this came because one day you chose to act. You chose to turn your pain into power, your past into fuel, your faith into strategy. I'm not offering you shortcuts. I'm calling you to build, brick by brick, decision by decision. Because, in the end, what remains is not the speed with which you started, but the solidity of what you refused to abandon. The world needs examples. Men and women who have chosen to be pillars, not leaves in the wind. And you can be one of them. You didn't find this video by accident. It was a call to action. A call to live with purpose, with clarity, with structure. Now the decision is yours. Will you continue as you are? Or will you get up and start building? If this voice touched you, if something inside you lit up, then share this video with someone who also needs to wake up. Spread this message like someone planting seeds of freedom. And if you want to continue this journey with me, subscribe to this channel. Here, you will have a constant source of structure, mentoring, and vision. The world is in chaos, but you don't have to be. You can be the balancing point, the rock, the architect of your new reality. I am Andrew Carnegie, and if you've listened to me this far, it's because you already have what it takes to transform everything. Now go and build. Because your time has come.